as a textbook example of the way you should do the politics and diplomacy of a problem like this, as well as the military side of it. So I don't think you can say one was more effective than the other. They were both really, if you look back on it, exceedingly effective. He was able to obtain international authority for what he did from the United Nations Security Council, the first time the Security Council really had acted in the manner that the founders intended for it to act since its formation, because of the Cold War rivalry between the Soviet Union and the United States. Before this, you would always have one or the other veto action that the other supported. The key to that was getting the Soviet Union on board immediately after Iraq invaded Kuwait on August the 3rd, 1990, when I flew to Moscow, and the Soviet Foreign Minister Shevardnadze supported an arms embargo joined with the United States and with me in an arms embargo against Iraq. So we were very pleased with the way it turned out. We felt that we were doing the right thing. I think history has proved that we were doing the right thing. I think the world, even though Saddam Hussein is still in power in Iraq, the world is a far better place today because of what was done. And even though Iraq is there and still has some military capabilities, it doesn't have nearly the military capabilities it had 10 years ago in terms of threatening its neighbors.
Well, of course, at the time that the liar Saddam Hussein, who had lied to President Mubarak of Egypt, had lied to King of Jordan, had lied to everybody in the area, but when he was proved to be a liar and had invaded Kuwait, my feeling was one of great anxiety and concern, first for the Kuwaiti people, and secondly for what this brutal aggression was doing to the Gulf. And I was very concerned about it, and so we immediately started figuring out what we could do about it.
The purpose of the meeting was to just make sure that we left no stone unturned, that history could not say to President Bush, you went to war, you took the nation to war, you took, in effect, the international community to war without ever sitting down face to face with the other side to see if you could get compliance with the Security Council resolutions without force, without war. So we had to have that meeting. But we never really expected that it was going to result in Iraq all of a sudden turning around and unconditionally leaving Kuwait after 5 months. They'd been there 5 months, if you remember. The occupation was August 2nd, 1990. The meeting with Tariq Aziz was January 9, 1991.
When the deadline came, the President signed the order to go ahead. What was your feeling at that moment?
Well, I knew at that moment that he was going to do that. I mean, there was never any doubt in my mind from January, from the end of the Tariq Aziz meeting until January 15th at midnight, there was never any doubt in my mind that we were going to go forward. We had moved 500,000 Americans to Gulf. We had no other alternative but to go forward. We'd told the international community this is what we were going to do. We'd told the Security Council, and they'd said, yes, this is...
Iraqi forces could invade Kuwait again like they did. They're not that strong. Fourth largest army has been reduced to something far less of a serious threat, but they got to keep their guard up. And every time I go there, I go out and see the American airmen and people that are holding high the banner of freedom for Kuwait. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to let the historians decide that. They can figure out my mistakes, of which I'm sure there were plenty, and they can figure out what we did right. I'd like to be remembered that we saved a tiny country, with the help of others, we saved a tiny country that if we hadn't moved would have been history, would have been just wiped out, and that we stabilized a very important area in the country, in the world, the Gulf, because if we hadn't moved against Saddam, he would have gone swept right into Saudi Arabia, and you'd have had a tyrant controlling the Gulf. So I think history will be pretty kind to us, not just me. I mean, heaven's sakes, we had all this fantastic support from my team domestically and internationally. strong allies. Mitterrand proved to be strong. John Major was the best. And then we had allies in the Middle East, like Ozal of Turkey and like Mubarak of Egypt. For the Saudis, to have U.S. forces based there against their years of history and cultural change, you know, and I think it was wonderful. So I'd like to be remembered as a person that moved properly in the Gulf through the United Nations, through diplomacy, through forming a coalition, and then through fighting to have done the job. But there's other things I'm happy about domestically. I won't bore you with them. I think I served with honor as the presidency of the United States. And of course, one thing I'd like to be remembered for is as the father of the 43rd President of the United States.
I think the Kuwaiti-American relationship is very strong, still as strong as it was 10 years ago. Although I haven't been in government for 8 years, I think it's still a very good relationship, a strong relationship. I still have many, many close personal friends in the government of Kuwait and in Kuwait. I still travel from time to Kuwait, and I enjoy doing so. And I think the relationship is solid and very firm and very good.
What are the lessons Americans and others have learned from the Gulf War and liberation?
Well, I think there are a couple of lessons. One is that one lesson I would hope that has been learned is that to the extent that you can move in concert with other nations, you have more political and diplomatic support around the world for what you're going to do. When you compare what was done in the Gulf with what was done in Kosovo, under American leadership in both cases, what was done in the Gulf built America's leadership role in the world and redounded to our benefit and the benefit of many other countries in the world politically. What was done in Kosovo didn't work that way. It may have been the right thing to do as a matter of right, but it may not have been done in exactly the right way. I think that's one lesson. Another lesson is that unprovoked aggression really should not be allowed to stand, particularly where you couple the violation of that principle and value, which is a value we hold quite dearly, with a national interest, such as access to the energy reserves.
I know their leaders. I have respect for the leadership. I feel a kinship to the people there because we saved their lives. We restored their country. And they have been very gracious to me when I go there in terms of gestures of friendship and all of this. But there's nothing other than that. And it's very emotional. Here we are on the 10th anniversary of the liberation of Kuwait. And I still get emotional about it because I know we did the right thing. As I say, you got a lot of critics, you got a lot of people that are young in our country that forget what it is for a brutal country to take over a neighbor. But we did the right thing, and I'll go to my grave with great satisfaction over that.
Well, nothing except best wishes to the Kuwaiti people and to the government of Kuwait, who are still, for whom we still have a warm spot in our hearts, those of us who were involved at the time of the Gulf War. And we continue to remember the warmth with which we were greeted in Kuwait when we came to Kuwait after the Gulf War.